Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Oregon Transportation Commission meeting for Thursday, February 21st. We had a wonderful work session this morning, understanding about the details of the ODOT budget. We had a few people that joined us there, and just wanted to say a quick thank you to the staff who put together an incredible presentation. And Director Garrett, I will go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to share 3 items with you during this director's report. First, let me begin by sharing a handful of key transportation indicators. The first being our preliminary vehicle miles traveled for the year to date through December of 2018. We've seen an increase of 0.9% compared to the previous year. This excludes a strong January, or excluding the strong January 2018 growth we saw. Overall, the preliminary VMT growth is flat for the year. Oregon's year-to-date growth rate is weaker than our sister states of Idaho, Nevada, and Washington, but stronger than California. Moving down to preliminary numbers specific to traffic fatalities, an unfortunate indicator and statistic, but the realities are this: for the year-to-date through December of 2018, 467 individuals lost their life on the road compared to 439 from the previous year. The estimated fatality rate for 2018 is 1.23 deaths per 100 million miles of vehicle miles traveled. This rate has remained unchanged since September of 2018. We will continue to focus on bending that line and the implications of such. The gas tax, or the motor fuel tax, year-to-date revenue has increased 13.7% through December compared to the previous year. This increase obviously is driven by the 4%, or the 4 cent per gallon increase, 13.3% of fuels tax effective January. It's the engagement of House Bill 2017 language. Actual gallons sold through all of 2018 are up 0.3% over 2017. Moving to weight mile, year-to-date revenues increased by 22.4% through December compared to the previous year. This increase is again driven by the 25% tax increase effective as of January from House Bill 2017. And if not for this tax increase, the weight mile revenue would have stayed pretty much flat as it was over the 17 year. The final indicator I want to share with you, and we spoke about this a little bit earlier, was the number of surrendered out-of-state licenses from DMV through 2018. We are now totaling a little over 90,000, 90,311. This is an increase of almost 1,800 over the same period in the year 2017, and is the second strongest year since 2000, and the Commission may recall our strongest year where we peaked over 100,000 surrendered license was 2016. So again, people certainly understand the beauty of the state, and they continue to migrate into the state. So as a transition out of indicators, I want to transition to a grant opportunity that we were informed of. So on February 5th, we were informed by the Federal Railroad Administration that Oregon was awarded $1.3 million in federal discretionary grant funding from the Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvement Program, known as CRISI. The CRISI program was established by Congress in the FAST Act of 2015. The Federal Railroad Administration manages the program to support safety enhancements and other improvements to the nation's passenger and freight rail systems. This funding will help ODOT and the Union Pacific Railroad complete work on the Peninsula Junction Passenger and Freight Rail Improvement Project. The $1.3 million Peninsula Junction project in North Portland will realign the tracks, upgrade railroad switches to allow trains to make safer, more consistent, and more fluid movements through the junction as trains merge onto and off of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad Railway main line in the North Portland Junction. The Peninsula Junction project is the third and final phase of an overall $18 million North Portland Peninsula Junction Rail Improvement Project. You should know that the North Portland Junction and the Peninsula Junction are among the busiest railroad convergence points in the state of Oregon and on the Pacific Northwest Rail Corridor. for both passenger and freight rail. Approximately 41 trains, including 12 Amtrak trains, pass through these junctions daily. I want to congratulate the rail professionals as well as Trevor Sleeman, John Baker of our Federal Affairs Office, and our partners, the Union Pacific, in working to secure this grant for the state of Oregon. And then finally, Madam Chair, staying in the world of rail and transit. Our colleague and friend Hal Gard recently shared his decision to retire from ODOT in June of this year after 25 years of steadfast service. Hal joined our ODOT as our agency's first archaeologist, and he came on to establish a much-needed relationship with the tribes here in the state of Oregon. And his hard work and dedication certainly has laid the foundation for the successful partnership we experience today with the 9 federally recognized tribes here in Oregon. In fact, ODOT's Tribal Relation Program continues to be held up as a model for other states and jurisdictions. From there, Hal worked in the environmental world, where environmental streamlining for the bridge investment package known as OTIA 3. He helped shift our environmental permitting process from one that was a process-based approach to an outcome-based approach. And what that entailed was bringing all our regulatory partners around the table to offer the plan, what we were going to do, and Hal made sure that this agency did exactly what it said. And that helped secure the relationship, an ongoing relationship with our regulators that helped with programmatic permitting as we move to the future with other opportunities and programs. From there, Hal took the lead position in the geo-environmental section and advanced numerous initiatives, including sustainability, culvert replacement, fish passage, environmental justice issues. And I think he was there maybe a couple decades ago when the Portland Harbor cleanup was first uttered, and we're still having those conversations. In 2012, I asked Hal to take over the rail division, and shortly after that to pick up the transit division to create the current public transit and rail division construct here, a merging of opportunity and a challenge to the skill sets of Mr. Gard here. But he delivered with flying colors. Throughout his career, Hal has brought a tactful firmness and intelligence to these demanding positions across the agency of ODOT here. And as a leader, he has modeled reason, fairness, and compassion, and has always provided a steady hand of consistency for this agency. Hal, I want to thank you for all you have done and your many touch points throughout this organization. I want you to know that you leave a proud legacy and that I wish you the very best as you move to write your next chapter in life. Thank you, Hal, for everything you've done. Please join me in thanking my friend Hal Gard. Madam Chair, with that, I will stand down.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Garrett. Let me first state that as Mr. Costales has taught us about the ease that are necessary in order to make sure that we are tracking the safety of the traveling public and what factors go into that, I want to make sure that we don't walk too far from the numbers that you just noted about fatalities in Oregon. And we as a commission continue to take that as a priority in terms of making sure that we have we're doing all that we can in terms of safety, and we will continue to lean in on the enforcement side of one of the E's that we have identified in terms of needing for us to really remain engaged. Let me then move to Mr. Gard and state that I am a better commissioner because of all of the time that you have taken to help educate me about the rail and public transit side of our system. And I do recognize also that this is not, that we have a few months until this transition happens. And so we will take great joy in being able to assist you with your send-off in the appropriate ODOT and OTC fashion. So whichever of your junior high photos that you'd like for us to use during that time, please feel free to submit it, or we will find one on our own. But do look forward to us celebrating you as the months ahead close in on that. So yes. So next we will go on to public comment. And I understand that Ms. Nassett has signed up, but I don't have another sheet. Do we have it? Please join us. Yes, I know you know the protocol. Please state your name for the record, and we have 3 minutes. But if anyone else is interested in, okay, all right. Ms. Nassett, great to see you. Go ahead and press the button, and when it turns red, there you are. Yep.
Oh, okay. Mine's still orange. Okay. For the record, I'm Sharon Nassett. Good day. Last time I was here last month, I talked a little bit about electric cars, and then in the mail, I call it synchronicity, came a little card that said that the Portland electric companies are putting in smart meters all over. They're not going to be charging us, and it'll be very easy. And I think this is a fabulous opportunity for you to see if you can talk with them about, hey, smart meters are coming in. We need 220 on the outside of houses for rototillers, chainsaws that were diesel fuel, and now that will be ours. And gee whiz, how are we going to do the 220 for the car? Because after all, it is just an electrical plug-in. And I think actually as cars come to Oregon, we should require that the plug-in does not come from the machine, but just comes from the car. But I think that would be a great conversation right now as they are doing them. Could they actually just put some 220 outside? They don't have to come in your house, don't have to change the electrical. Should we be considering that? The next thing is congestion. You may or may not have, I did leave you a colored flyer of our third bridge. The next thing I'd like to talk about is, again, we're having a problem with the fact of we're 26th in size, 60th in density, but one of the top places in the nation and the world for congestion. I think we're now like 12 or 13. It keeps going between 8 and 13 back and forth. And 26th in size means we should at least be around that. There are several things that we do in Portland that could change the pollution level. Many of them are in my neighborhood. I have left you a list for you to think about later, but I would like to bring up the transit one. We do not have transit that goes specifically into employment centers from Clark County or from anywhere, using church parking lots and other areas that people can walk to, and then it goes through the airport or through a work area. They're all downtown located. For a long time, we have had a moratorium on the events, not being allowed to have buses from our region drop off at the convention center or the transit, or to allow buses downtown for hotels and things, mostly to protect the parking, which that's gone. I mean, that boat sailed. And the other was to take care of taxis in downtown. So I see my time is up. Thank you very much. I will come back, but these are some thoughts on things that we could do that are free and cheap.
Wonderful, and I do encourage, I'm not sure if you've reached out to the TriMet board or to TriMet in particular. I'm reading just briefly your comments here that you've given us. I wonder if those also would be beneficial to bring to them as well.
I have spoke to them, and they do not allow the buses from Vancouver to go other than downtown, nor pick up anybody, even though they're going to those areas, if they were to go to those areas or not. And we have very odd laws between Oregon and Washington where we don't allow the services in the areas to complement each other.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. And wonderful to see you again this morning.
Thank you.
Yes. Ron, I noted you were in the room. I wondered if you wanted to speak as well. So okay, very good. Go ahead and hit the button and so that your microphone turns red. I think it's on, isn't it? Not yet.
Okay.
There you are.
Oh, never mind.
Okay. And you know the protocol as well.
Okay.
Please state your name for the record.
Yes, thank you. Ron Swarren, 15483 Southeast Umatilla Street. Good morning, Commissioners, Director Garrett. I wanted to say I noticed the lane striping on I-5 is really good, much safer than it used to be. And I saw too, about 2 years ago, you were starting to target your seismic upgrading into Southwest Oregon, and I got an email from Darren Nebal about that. I worked in seismic upgrading beginning about 1990. Not a whole lot, but some of the basics of it. And then in the last few years, I've found sources of information that are very good. OSU published about a 180-page report on the Cascadian subduction zone, and U of O came out with something about a year ago. And basically, those two reports are confirming earlier studies that show that there's a greater risk in the Cascadian subduction zone on the northern and southern margins. And also in our latitude and in Portland's latitude, the zone is probably about 110 miles west. It's along the continental shelf, and then even beyond that, a few miles, there's a continental slope, they call it. And then from what I saw with OSU's studies, the core samples they did were basically along this, the very edge, so probably about 110 miles west of Portland. At Port Orford, though, it's only about 30 miles, so I believe that area is great risk. And what I'm getting at is a lot of people are very exercised about this danger, and they call for lots of expenses. Multnomah County is proposing $1.1 billion for seismic upgrades of its bridges. I heard a figure just this last fall that if we upgraded the I-5 bridge, that'd be $600 million. Now, I'm kind of questioning those figures, particularly Multnomah County. But one thing I'd like to point out is Caltrans has been getting a lot of experience in seismic upgrading. And I saw a list of their projects. A lot of them were pretty reasonable. Even some of the really big bridges were, I think the biggest one might have been $200 million. That was Carquinez Strait. So I don't think the I-5 necessarily would need a major upgrade to that extent, although I agree it needs some extent. I think we could better spend our money on driver safety. The defensive driving campaign of the 1970s was very effective in controlling accidents, and we need something updated for pedestrians and more people on bicycles. I live up right on the Springwater Trail. There's a lot of people that just ignore. They don't have warning devices. You know, they're ignoring the signs and stuff. So maybe some kind of defensive operation campaign. But the basic thing is I hope that in budgeting for projects that are really under discussion, that we can have a more informed conversation about the seismic risk. And if it's not risky, let's take a more conservative approach. I'm not going to have all the time to go into it. And also, I handed out this article I wrote on double-decker buses in Everett, Washington. Very, very low-cost but useful approach to transit.
Excellent.
So,
thank you, Mr. Sworn.
thanks.
Just a couple of points. We are working on, I think actually it's on our consent to our work plan. And so an opportunity for us to look at workshops that we will have in the future and make sure that we are educated. As you note, we have 3 relatively new commission members, and so we will be having a discussion about the Cascadia subduction zone and the resiliency plan and the playbook and et cetera. And then also we do meet annually with Washington and California commissions, and so it's another place where we learn from one another.
Well,
so
we just had a meeting with Washington legislators that they held in Oregon where we were talking about I-5 bridge replacement. And a lot of us really favor an additional route, and Port of Portland has said that they would favor that too. There's really some expert opinion that would favor an additional route instead of more work on the I-5.
Great. Well, thank you.
Okay.
More to come.
Thanks.
Wonderful to see you both. So next item, a discussion for the commission, and let me start by saying that our esteemed director, the longest serving Department of Transportation director in the United States, having just secured the first strategic business plan for the agency of Oregon Department of Transportation, as well as moving the agency from a relatively highway focused into a very solid multimodal system. and also putting a flag at the top of the mountain of being able to secure historic funding for the state of Oregon in a package of $5.3 billion. Has announced that he too intends to transition out around the same time frame. Not sure if the Hal Gard and Matt Garrett are in cahoots, but we have a transition in front of us here as well. And so for the commission today, Commissioner Van Brocklin and I have had discussions in terms of getting us to a point of where we will be working on a recruitment process. So for today, the consideration is to identify the chair of that work, also designating a search committee, and then a process of matrix, of which you have in your packet to review as well. So I will turn it over right now to Commissioner Van Brocklin, Vice Chair, to outline what you have for us today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me start by echoing Tammy's comments about Matt. This is really our first occasion since his announcement to be in a public setting with him and acknowledge his service. We will be doing a lot more of that later in the year. But I would just say before I launch into this conversation about transition that Matt has been an extraordinary leader of the agency, and while my experience with him is shorter than some on the commission, it's I think equally as high quality a working relationship, and Matt has been a tremendous asset to the state, and so I want to congratulate him for his 22 years at ODOT and his 13 plus years as director of ODOT. That is a very long stretch to be at an agency, and an extremely long stretch to be directing the department as its chief executive. So congratulations, Matt, on your tremendous efforts and extraordinary career here. As the chair said, the director announced in January that he intended to resign his position on or about June 30 of this year. And that puts the commission in the position of looking to a process to identify and hire his successor. Up until the passage of House Bill 2018, that job was the job of the governor, not the Transportation Commission. But with the passage of House Bill 2017, the responsibility for selecting the director and becoming the direct reporting entity for the director switched from the governor to the Oregon Transportation Commission. So we are going to be doing this process for the first time ever as a commission, and so we're trying to develop out what we hope will be a good process for selecting Matt's successor. I would say the themes to carry away from this conversation are that we intend to have a national level search for his replacement, that we are going to have an inclusive process that will include opportunities for comment along the way and participation. We want this to be a transparent, open, and inclusive process, and we intend to ensure that as our draft recruitment and hiring plan suggests. So the initial actions that I am today asking the commission to approve are as follows. To establish a search committee for the new ODOT director, and to appoint Chair Boehne, myself, and Brendan Fenn, who is the governor's policy advisor on transportation, to serve on that search committee. One of the provisions in House Bill 2018 requires that the OTC make this decision in consultation with the governor, and we've asked Brendan if he would serve on the search committee with us. He's agreed to do that, and we envision Brendan being involved in this, consistent with the statute of consulting with the governor, and with Brendan as the governor's representative in this process, that Brendan will be involved all the way through the process to its conclusion. So specifically what I'm asking the commission to approve today is to establish a search committee, appoint Brendan, Tammy, and I to serve on that committee, the search committee, authorize the search committee to hire a search consultant with total cost not to exceed $125,000 unless expressly adjusted by the commission, and to report back on our progress in hiring a search consultant at the March 21st OTC meeting, and finally to initiate public comment on the draft recruitment and hiring plan, which is in the materials. I want to note that the version that I would like you to approve is in your supplemental packet. We noted a couple of dates that weren't lining up, so those you'll find highlighted in yellow in the pink in the supplemental group of materials. So you can have this one if you want. And so that is the other item that we need to have approved. And what we would be approving there would be initiating a public comment period beginning tomorrow and ending on March 7th to allow public comment on the recruitment and hiring timeline matrix. And then we will take those comments and develop a final matrix, and that matrix will be before the commission at its March 21st meeting for approval by the commission. So with that, I'm ready for any questions the commission members may have of me, and then moving to a motion.
I can make a formal move. You have something to say?
Okay.
No, I don't have a question.
So if we don't have any questions, and it is fairly straightforward, thank you very much for that overview. I would welcome a motion.
Great. Madam Chair, I move the establishment of the ODOT Direct Search Committee, the appointment of Chair Boehne, Brendan Finn, and Vice Chair Bob Van Brocklin to serve on the search committee. The appointment of Vice Chair Van Brocklin to Chair of the Search Committee, authorizing the Search Committee to hire a search consultant to assist the OTC in conducting a national search and report back to the OTC at the March 21st Commission meeting about that hire. Limiting those total costs to $125,000 without additional authority from the OTC, and initiate a public comment period through March 8th on the draft recruitment and hiring timeline matrix, and propose a final matrix for OTC approval at the Commission's March 21st meeting.
Wow, it's almost as though that were written out.
No, totally freestyled.
Wonderful. Any further comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the lead on this work. Okay, next, Ms. Silva, oh, hi, Kat, I didn't see you in the back. So next we have an update on the progress report of House Bill 2017, and in your packet you have our dashboard. That was also in your supplemental materials. Good morning. I didn't see you sneak in. The floor is yours.
Good morning. For just a few more minutes, commissioners. And for the record, my name is Kat Silva. I'm here to present this month's House Bill 2017 implementation progress report for your review, input, questions, and acceptance. You'll note that we have several things kind of going on this month, but not as much activity as we normally have. I think we just kind of the bigger items coming forward now. So the Connect Oregon sponsor plans are coming forward this month for your review and discussion, and then they'll be coming forward again next month, hopefully at that point for decision and any supplemental information that you request. We also have the STIF transportation improvement plans coming forward next month for the formula fund applications, or for the formula fund allocations for transit. And I think we anticipate all 18 of the submitted plans from qualified entities coming forward with a recommendation to approve at that point. That's the last update that we had. This month we had 100% of the local governments report in on their local condition infrastructure, infrastructure conditions in accordance with the standards that you all adopted last year around this time. And that was a big win for us. We were all kind of working really hard. I think I credit the implementation team on that one for really doing a whole lot of outreach to local governments and helping them with the online forms and making sure that everything was submitted on time. And we had 277 entities report before the deadline of February 1st. So now we're taking that information and aggregating it with the state ODOT-owned bridge and pavement information, and we'll be bringing forward a statewide transportation infrastructure condition report for you all to review and provide input on, and then accept and approve for submission to the legislature by the April 1st deadline. So it's kind of a tight turnaround for that. You'll also notice that the gap analysis for the proportionate user fees report, that's kind of the one outstanding, not yet started initiative on the front page of your dashboard, now has a date attached to it. So it's in the queue at DAST, and it will be moving forward, anticipated in spring of 2020. The deadline for that, again, is 2023. So with that, I will open it up for questions with regard to kind of the other progress updates. And then I can move to the staffing piece at the end.
Any comments or questions? Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, so you'll note at the end of your report this month, we have the quarterly update on our recruitments for the House Bill 2017 positions. We've made significant progress since the last report. In September of 2018, we reported filled positions at 162 and active or in recruitment positions at 55, and so those numbers have gone down significantly. The two inactive positions, actually, one was kind of awaiting the Workday update, which is a statewide, enterprise-wide technology solution for HR. So we needed to wait for that to launch that recruitment, and that just launched, I think, Monday. So they'll get that recruitment out and underway now. The second one vacated, actually, so was filled and churned. So we now are going to resubmit that position for recruitment now. Any questions specific to this?
No, but I think given this is something that we are watching very closely.
Right.
Obviously, our ability to stand up and be able to deliver on House Bill 2017 is going to be based on our ability to recruit and retain the team that we have. So there's a lot of work that's behind this, and I just want to call that out.
Yes.
That while they may be numbers on a page, there is a lot of work going on to be able to really engage, especially when we have historic low unemployment rates right now, and it feels as though really anyone who has any funding is doing something in the transportation arena and also dipping into the same pool looking for talented individuals. So
That's right.
Thank you for that work.
Absolutely. Any other questions, concerns, information you'd like to see coming forward in the future?
Is this meeting our needs?
Yes,
Okay. Okay, great.
this is great.
Yeah.
Continues to be great.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Kat.
Okay, next we have a legislative update. Ms. Baker? Perfect timing, Ms. Baker. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Is this on? Yes.
Oh, it is? Oh, I
It
can't
is
see
on.
it from here.
Great.
All right. Hey,
Good morning, Chair Boehne, members of the Commission. For the record, Lindsay Baker with the ODOT Government Relations. So I know you guys are running a little bit behind schedule, so I'll try to go quickly through it. I think this is the first time I've been before you since the legislative session, the 2019 session began, and it has been off with a bang. So we're in session. It's been, I think this is the 6th week now, of our 160-day session. So a couple of sort of process points as a reminder. Last session, the legislature passed a bill that had the start date of the long sessions moved up by about a couple of weeks. So that sort of interim period, the end of January, when we typically would have been doing a lot of our bill reviews, a lot of our preparation for informational hearings, sort of figuring out what's what, reading through all the bills, that was sort of absent from this session. So we really, truly hit the ground running. So just so to sort of have in the back of your head in terms of context numbers, volume of bills, as of yesterday morning, we've had about 2,100 bills have been introduced into the process. We do a lot of review of every single bill that is filed a first reading. As of yesterday, ODOT is tracking about 700 of those bills, right? These really range the gamut from bills that have a significant impact to the agency, bills that we're just paying attention to because we sort of care about the outcome, but maybe we won't proactively engage in them, versus bills that would impact us, not in the unique way, but because we are the enterprise of state government, right? So they're really along this sort of spectrum. So again, that's 700 bills. We've had 62 bills that have been referred to our Joint Committee on Transportation. And another important thing to note about this session in particular, distinct from previous sessions, is that there is now one statutory Joint Committee on Transportation that really is our number one policymaking committee, right? So in the past, we've had a House Committee on Transportation, the Joint Committee from the 2017 session. We've had the Senate Business and Transportation Committee. So we've had to play in a lot of different spaces. And I think one thing that's unique and I think has been a good improvement this session is that we've got one joint committee that we've been spending a lot of time with. So as I mentioned earlier, there have not been because we sort of got a quick start, but also a slow start simultaneously, right? There wasn't a ton of time to prep. So we've not had a ton of bills being moved through the process. We've had a lot of informational hearings. So ODOT has actually been in front of the Joint Committee on Transportation several times. We spent a couple of days at the very beginning of session giving the legislature an informational hearing on House Bill 2017 implementation. So 2 full committees that was really dedicated to talking about how we've been implementing on the funding package that they passed in the 2017 session over the past, what has it been, about a year and a half now, right? So standing up our STIF program, standing up our Safe Routes to School, the work that we're doing in the Connect space, all of the projects that are being delivered from our highway division, and just giving them a sense for how the work has been going so far. We then spent a couple of days in front of the committee doing sort of what was the program and budget overview. So think of a miniature Ways and Means conversation, right? So we dove a little bit deeper for our joint committee legislators into how our budget is structured, the different sort of pots of funding, right? The sources and uses of funds, the color of funds, because ODOT is a somewhat unique agency in that respect because we have a lot of federal funding that governs the way that we do our work. So I think that was a particularly valuable exercise for the Joint Committee to learn more about how we do what we do, right? So we're more of a program focus, but a deeper dive into our budget. In addition to that, we've been in front of the Joint Committee talking about our Real ID implementation, talking about how the revenues have been coming in from the House Bill 2017 transportation package. And then going forward, we've got a few presentations in front of the Joint IT Committee, as well as our full budget presentations the first week of March for our Joint Ways and Means Subcommittee. So a lot of action going on right now. So I'll just maybe mention a few other bills that are outstanding and that we've been engaging in particularly. So House Bill 2045 is a bill that's been brought forward by the Oregon State Police that increases their trooper staffing levels. I know that you all have been very interested, and the governor's office has also been very interested in this conversation about increasing our law enforcement presence out in the community, particularly right for us with an emphasis on highway safety. So typically agencies don't support or oppose or take positions on bills. But for this one in particular, we reached out to the governor's office, asked if it was okay to provide support formally, and our director was before the House Committee on Judiciary talking to this bill specifically. So that's one of them. We've got a whole host of bills about speed, setting speed, the different methodology, which I know you guys have heard about in previous commission meetings over the past few months. Work around transportation network companies, so the Ubers and the Lyfts of the world, and how the state may be interested in regulating or not those companies. Work on the AB task force, a whole host of other things. The one thing I will call particular attention to is House Bill 2020, which is the climate and carbon package this session. So as you all have heard, there is significant interest from leadership and from the governor's office as well in moving forward some climate policy and carbon reduction policy this session. So right now, the Joint Committee on Carbon Reduction has been meeting since maybe last summer, I think, and formulating a package that would address carbon emissions across the state and set up a cap and trade program. So ODOT is called out and the OTC is called out particularly, but the language is pretty high level at this point. So I think right now the committee is doing their work. They're taking the show on the road, as it were. Over the next, I think, 3 weeks, they're going to be out in 4 public hearings across the state to hear some feedback from Oregonians on how this might impact them and what they might think about it. And ODOT continues to remain engaged in the conversation. So as that moves forward, right, as we think about how the work of that committee is interacting with us, how it interacts with our statewide transportation strategy, which you all were working on last summer, fall, I think we'll continue to have more conversations about that. So with that, happy to answer any questions or give the rest of my time up.
Well, that is quite a flyover of a lot of information. We stand ready to assist the legislature as they walk forward with House Bill 2020. So look forward to working with them. Do we have questions for Ms. Baker at all? Okay. Incredible gratitude for your work.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being on point for us. Anything else to come before the commission before we have a recess for lunch? All right. I think we're actually, I don't recall a time where we were even 3 minutes ahead of schedule. But let's go ahead and recess and we will reconvene at 1 o'clock. Thank you.